Hey everybody, welcome to BOATT, Bob's On-Air Tech Talk with Tech Dissected. This is Alvin, your host. I sure did miss you guys last week. I was out of the country, but I really appreciate my co-host, Mr. Tony McAfee, for taking care of things while I was gone. I know you guys had a blast. No guests, no giveaways, no gimmicks tonight, just BOATT. So come on, let's get on the boat and let's meet everybody. First off, we'll start off with Mr. Tony and his new background. I like it. I like your electronic thing, your glow back there. How are you, Tony?
Wonderful. How are you guys doing? How are you doing? How was
Good.
your trip?
It was really good. It was really
Good.
good. If you didn't know where I was in Jamaica on a missions trip with our church. We go every year, and spent a week down there. It was a blast. We had a really good time, changed a lot of lives, including our own. Did a lot of good work, but I'm glad to be back in the States. I'm still playing catch up a little bit, so if I hadn't got to a message or anything just yet, I apologize, but I promise I'm getting to them all in the order in which they were received. But moving right along, we've also got Mr. Fred in the house. Fred, how are you?
Doing great, doing great. Good to see you back, Alvy.
Hey, appreciate it. It's good to be back. And then we have, as usual, Mr. Chuck Haynes, our resident guest, if you will. He's just home. He's family members at this point. So how are you, Chuck?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I'm upstairs this week. We're having some work done, so apologize for the echo. Hopefully it's not too bad this week.
Well, I don't hear any echo back here, so I think you're okay. Yeah, I feel like I've been gone forever because everybody's got a new background. And then we've got another member of Tech Dissected, Mr. Andrews. Good to see you in the house tonight.
Hey, what's going on, Alvy? How's everybody doing tonight?
We're good. We're good. And if you don't know, Andrew's kind of our resident iOS guy. He'll be sharing a lot of things. But let's go ahead and get started. Let's get on the boat. A lot of things going on. One of the biggest things, Google I/O. First thing I wanted to ask everybody, initial impressions and the biggest thing that struck you this week at the announcement. And let's just go. Tony, what you got?
Let's see. I know. I mean, everybody's been crazy about Android Wear, and honestly, I'm probably the most excited about Android Wear. But for me, the biggest announcement, just having an older car right now, the biggest announcement was the Android. I apologize. What was it called? Android car? Is that what it's called? But the Android options coming to vehicles. That's probably what I'm absolutely most excited about because I have an older Cavalier, 2000, not an older Cavalier, but a 2002, and I'm really at that point where I'm like kind of halfway looking for another car. But now, if I could find something, and I'm hoping to see, like a dash unit that does all the stuff that Android Wear does. Not sure if they'll be available, but definitely something I'm looking forward to when we do figure out what we're doing for our next car. That's probably my personal favorite.
Oh, Alfie, you're muted there.
There we go. Sorry about that. I'm trying to play around and make sure we have the name of it right. It's either Android car or Android in-car. Anybody know off the top of their head?
I think it's just Android car.
I think it is too. So we'll go with that. If you want to correct this. By the way, the Q&A is open, so if you got any questions about Google I/O or any other thing that's going on this week in tech world, the Q&A is open, so please leave your questions there. And correct us if we're wrong on anything, because we're trying to fly off the top of our head and do research as we go. But yeah, the Android car thing, that was really exciting to me too. Now, you guys know I got the Sony Ultra Z, so I'm rocking Sony deep. They have that in-dash thing that really excites me, but it's $250 and I haven't been able to save up for it. And if you don't know what it is, it's a in-dash doubled-in, replaces your car stereo. It's got a CD player in it, Bluetooth, but it's really Sony heavy because Sony has their own little version of wireless charging, so it clicks right in, and everything talks back and forth. It's kind of like a smartphone version of Android Car already. But yeah, I'm with you, Tony. That was kind of not surprising, but surprising at the same time. We hadn't heard much rumbling about rumors or anything, but not surprising that Android had something like that.
I think it's just exciting that we're going to have those kind of options for everything. I mean, because basically it's Android Wear for your car. I mean, there's a few more things it does with navigation and stuff, but to me, if I can say OK Google to pretty much every one of my devices I have to use every day, including a car, that'd be OK with me.
Well, plus,
Go ahead.
if you take a look at the number of car manufacturers who are getting behind the Android car versus the number of manufacturers who have gotten behind the kind of iOS in the car, it's pretty astounding. There was, at least a dozen manufacturers on there.
On the cars, 40.
Yeah, 40.
Manufacturers.
Okay.
Wow.
So I think the adoption is going to be huge. And iOS was what, 2 or 3 maybe that I think I've seen.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm excited more about it because let's go back a few years when iPhones ruled the world, and every car had an iPhone dock or an iPhone adapter, and everybody thought that was awesome and cool, unless you didn't have an iPhone. And then you realize, like, you've got all this stuff. My current car now, I've got a Nissan Leaf, and it's iPhone heavy, and there's all these functions and options. USB port in my Nissan Leaf will not even power on an Android phone. I can't even charge with it. It has to be an iPhone or iOS type device. It's terrible. I'm like, let's just make this, 40 manufacturers getting behind it. I think it's going to be a little better for everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, what about you, Fred? What was your initial impressions and biggest thing for the week at the I/O?
Well, to be honest, I kind of only got I/O second and really third hand because I was kind of busy on the other end of the country here on a tiny island off the coast of America known as Manhattan at CE Week, which is where I spent all day yesterday. So, well, I guess after we get done with I/O, I'll catch you up on a few of the gizmos and gadgets and new technologies that I saw over there at CE Week. But I'm still kind of catching up to the I/O news over here at my end, I'm sorry to say.
No, that's cool. Yeah, I'm excited to hear what you've got about that. We've got enough rumblings on here with the rest of the guys. We'll catch up with you on that here in just a little bit. Chuck, what about you? Initial impressions and biggest surprise, maybe?
Biggest surprise was definitely the car thing. I didn't really see that coming. Me, I'm probably not as excited as most people, only because I'm not really getting a new car anytime soon. So I was really excited to see the preview of the next version of Android. I think that was extremely smart on Google's part to do that. And also, of course, wearables. But one thing I was also very happy is to see Google I/O is a developer conference, and I was happy to see Google kind of maintain that it's a developer conference. I mean, they talked about some Chromebook stuff. They talked about Google Cloud, some of their developer infrastructure there. The keynote was extremely long. 3 hours. I think they probably could have broken it up a little bit. But they kept it a developer conference, which I think is nice. I guess so. Next version of Android and wearables is probably the two most exciting things for me.
Cool. How about you, Andrew? You're kind of iPhone it and Googling it, so what you got?
The thing that excited me the most, or surprised me the most, was the Occupy I/O. Did not expect that to happen, or to actually see people get arrested from it either. But other than that, it was definitely the developer preview for the next version of Android. I love trying out new operating systems. Last week I wrote a in-depth article about the iOS 8 beta. I'm running the beta for Yosemite on my MacBook Pro right now, and Android L is next on the list.
Okay, so you're beta deep over there.
All the way through. It's driving me nuts, but I'm all the way through.
Well, and we'll come back to some of this I/O stuff. Andrew, I'm interested because I've got no iOS anything. I do have a Mac, but I haven't messed around with the Yosemite is what I'm calling it because I'm just not happy with that name. The Yosemite beta or anything. But compare the way Android or Google, whatever you want to call it, handles their betas, which the L is just a beta, to the way that Apple iOS handles all of their stuff, if you can.
Well, so iOS 8 beta came out, and I could not get it installed or even downloaded the first night. The developer preview hit today, and I'm on Android L already, and I've been playing with it and been writing stuff about it, and from just that standpoint of them handling the operating systems there, Google is just blowing Apple out of the water. And if you want to get into specifics about the differences between the two, still, Android L is so much smoother than the first beta of iOS. I've had one app crash on me, just one. Whereas on iOS 8 beta 1, it was like, all right, when can these guys finally get their stuff optimized for iOS 8? Because I can't do it anymore.
Well, yeah, and just
Beta 2 fixed that a little bit, but it's still not all the way back yet.
well, and that's all I've heard is rumblings on the different socials is the iOS beta is broken, for lack of a better term, where Android L just dropped today, so there's not enough time to hear from it, but it seems like it's working a little better.
Google Plus was unusable on iOS 8 Beta 1. Like, every time you open the app and you press the screen, it crashed. So then you could relaunch the app, and it was like, do you want to send a crash report? No. I sent a crash report probably like the first 3 times and realized it was going to keep happening, and I just didn't use Google Plus, the Google Plus app. If I had to use it, I used it on Safari browser.
Maybe that was their intent.
Probably.
So,
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing too, you have to think about, so 2 things. One, as far as the deployment goes, there's only 2 devices for Android L. There's a Nexus 5 and a Nexus 7. As far as the iOS betas go, you've got all the iPads back to iPad 2. You've got iPhone 5S, 5C, 4, and the latest iPod Touch. So you do actually can get it on a much larger range of devices for Apple, which is actually kind of unusual. Usually it's the other way around. But also, iOS beta, not to defend Apple, but I mean, the things they're putting into iOS 8 from a system level perspective are significantly more than what Android L is bringing to the table. Android L, don't get me wrong, they're doing a lot of cool stuff, but it's not adding a lot of
cosmetic.
Cosmetic. That's the word I'm looking for. Cosmetic.
Oh,
yep.
Their material design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I agree with that. My favorite thing that I can't wait for, and everybody, and I wrote this in the write-up I did on iOS 8, is I can't wait for third-party keyboards. I just can't wait. I know, I can go on my Nexus, I can go on my M8, I can go on my girlfriend's M7. That's technically mine. Like, I can go and swipe and use anything I want to, but to be able to use that on the device that I'm actually using every day compared to something that just comes with me in my bag, I'm super, super excited for that. Finally.
And I tell you one thing that Apple, and I don't know why Google isn't doing this, and I'm so mad. I have to say this is the one thing that I was expecting at I.O. and I didn't see. I still can't receive and send text messages and phone calls from Chrome to my phone. I am...
Continuity is probably going to be the greatest thing to ever happen to Apple.
Yeah.
Yes. I am extremely disappointed in Google.
What I'm wondering if maybe Google is going to just use that as a push for Google Voice. Because obviously there's something coming. If you look in, anybody who has a Google Voice number, even if you haven't associated with your Hangouts, like how Hangouts automatically asks you, hey, can you confirm your phone number and whatnot, it does not ask you about that, about your Google Voice number, but it is listed in your Google Voice as in your Hangout settings as a confirmed telephone number. I'm wondering if they're going to make their play using Google Voice numbers and say, oh yeah, now you can use it all through Hangouts, because you can currently make a phone call through Hangouts on your computer with your Google Voice number. It just happens automatically. So I'm wondering if that's going to be their answer to that. Instead of trying to develop something and actually doing the legwork like Apple did, they're going to just say, oh, well, we've had Google Voice for so long, just use that. I hope not, but I'm wondering if that could possibly be their answer.
Well, my question for that is, if you're gonna make that kind of push, and how long has it been since everybody's been talking about Google Voice making a comeback?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do it at I/O?
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah.
Well, the other thing that's frustrating is, didn't they demo it on Chromebooks? Didn't they show that Chromebooks could send and receive text messages and phone calls to the phone? I thought I saw that somewhere today. I'm not 100% sure. I was trying to track it down, but I thought that they had demoed it from Chromebooks. So if they demoed it on a Chromebook, well, why can't you do it on Chrome in general then?
Me personally, I'm confused of the holdup and all of that. It seems like it's been ready. Like Tony, what you're talking about, you can start the call, and even there's a workaround where you can hand it off to your mobile device if you initialize it and do it a whole bunch of weird ways. It makes me wonder, are they going, they've got the Google Fiber thing, are they going to try to be a carrier? And then there's your push, you do it all, you integrate it all, and then for $50 a month you get your internet, your phone, your voice, and all that kind of stuff, something like that. I don't know what the holdup is, though. It's interesting. As much as they push out and try to be innovative, that one, which seems like way behind the time, is still way back burner and not important to them.
Well, and as committed as I am to Android, and as much as I love Android, and as big of a proponent I am of Android over iOS specifically, and have been in the past, and I really don't care for a lot of what Apple does, and I've never been a daily iOS user. But one thing I will say, and I will give this to Apple, they've always had a better looking operating system. So to me, what Android's done here with Material, at least with what we've seen of Material, is they've finally caught up with iOS in the attention to detail and of design. Like, there's never been a version. I like the way Android looks. I like the darks that they use and everything, but there's never been a operating system by Android that's looked as good as and polished and finished as what iOS has. And now we've finally got Material Design, which this is kind of it's nothing against Google. It's not. I'm not saying anything for Apple, and I'm probably going to get flamed for this on Google Plus. But they've finally done something like Apple would never have released an operating system that looked anything like Android did before now. And now it's like, okay, this is actually how Android really should have looked from the beginning. You know, this probably should have been the way it was developed originally. And I don't know anything about the functionality yet because I haven't gotten to play with it, but that's just my opinion about how it looks now.
Well, and Andrew, you're running L, right, currently?
Yes, I got it. We were talking a little bit earlier about my struggles with ADB, but finally got it through.
All right, so what are we looking at? Because it's not out for anybody other than what Nexus 5, Nexus 7, 13. What are the big differences that we're looking at there?
Now, I'm a very visual kind of person, but when I say that, I mean I like very minimal setup. I don't have a lot of icons on my first page. I don't, I'm very particular about what icons are there. And when it comes to Android and the customization options, even at that point, I'm still picky. I'll root and ROM just to get something like when I had Samsung devices, just to get all that extra crap off of there. My favorite thing is probably everything, to be honest with you. The design is Tony hit the nail right on the head. If Android's been trying to catch up to iOS in terms of design forever, and I think with Android L, once it's out to the masses, it's there. It's the notification screen, the keyboard is my favorite thing ever. I don't know why. The keyboard's awesome. It just looks. I love the flat design that Google took with it.
Well, all right, and everybody chime in on this. Tell me your thoughts here. Here's what I've noticed. Let's back up going to, again, I don't know why I'm stuck in when iPhone ruled the world. Back when iPhone ruled the world, everybody used all of the iPhone stuff. So you used their keyboard, their maps, their browser, and none of the extra apps, and most people didn't. Android comes along, and that's what was cool. There's an app for that. I argue with plenty of people about it. Like, well, I use this on my iPhone. I was like, well, I've got 4 different apps that do the exact same thing, but much better on my Android. And now here we are fast forwarding, and Google, like, everything is on your Google phone already. Your Android phone has perfect apps and maps. It's got Google Now, so it's got all your notifications and everything that way. And we're pulling away from outside apps, and then iPhone now is allowing third-party apps and third-party keyboards and all that kind of stuff. It's almost like a design shift backwards, swapped out or whatever. I don't know. You guys give me your thoughts on that. I hope I've explained that well enough.
Well, I think the one thing that Android, or I should say Google does that Apple didn't do is Google gives you a reason to use all of their built-in apps. If you use Gmail, use Hangouts, Google Now, everything's tightly integrated together. Yeah, of course, you're giving all your data and basically your entire life to Google, but, I mean, in the end, at least for me personally, I don't really care because it makes my life easier. So I think Google gives you a reason to use all their apps as opposed to a third-party app, whereas Apple's kind of done the exact opposite. There's really not a good reason right now to necessarily use Apple's, all their devices or all their apps. iCloud maybe, but not a huge compelling reason.
That's a good point. Good point. Yeah, and I guess that's even what I said. There's 4 other apps that do it but better, and maybe there's not on Android that do it better. What do you think, Fred? You're kind of quiet tonight.
Yeah, well, I've been kind of out of the loop of iOS pretty much almost exclusively, and coincidentally, I just got my T-Mobile test drive with iPhone 5S arrived. Was waiting for me when I got back from CE Week last night, and so I'm actually here with iOS 7, and these are almost first impressions of iOS for me. So I'm kind of a iOS newbie. I've never used an iPhone before, even to make a phone call. I had an early, I think, second generation iPod Touch, but I probably haven't. I've barely handled that since I got the original OG Droid end of 2009. So I'm kind of rapidly trying to catch up, even just to where iOS has been. And I've been unabashed and certainly outspoken Android fan. Initial impressions here of iOS after not having touched it for a long time is that although it looks great, and I'm sure, although I haven't put it to a hard test yet, I'm sure the phone itself is great technology-wise. I'm not enjoying the interface that much. Again, first impressions only, but I'm having trouble with the one button, which I know iOS users love and swear by. It was kind of troublesome in the beginning before we had Android, but I find myself really just in early attempts to navigate, I find myself really missing that back, undo, escape button, which we're really so used to on Android. And while it's not something that on PC or Mac we're used to having, that persistent back button, in a phone environment, it really makes sense as you navigate through apps, try to move around. And it's been in phone technology really long before Android and smartphones. There's always been an escape, back, etc. key. And I see that most apps do have a back navigation, but it's something that I'm missing, that persistent in the UI here. So again, it's early impressions, but my initial thoughts here are kind of more confirming my devotion to Android at the moment. But we'll see how that goes over the next 6 days that I've got left on this test drive.
I got you. Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, and there are some questions pouring in here. And for those of you guys watching at home, yeah, the Q&A is still open. So if you've got any questions for any of the guys here, something about I/O, something about Fred when he did his week over there, be sure to hit us up over here. Here's something I've got over here. What are your thoughts as to why the majority of the people at I/O and those that have seen smartwatches have ordered the LG G Watch over the Samsung Watch? What's your reason behind this? And anybody chime in on that?
I actually, honestly, have no idea. We were talking about this a little bit before the show, into which would you rather have, the LG or the Samsung? And me personally, I think the Samsung looks better. It's cheaper, and it seems to have the AMOLED screen, which theoretically should give you better battery life, especially if they're just doing a basic watch face. So I would like to know why anyone would choose the LG watch. I honestly don't know.
Here's my opinion or theory on it, and this, especially for me, because I've been kind of out of the loop this week trying to play catch up since I was out of the country for so long. We didn't know a lot about a Samsung Android Wear watch coming in, or at least I didn't. The LG G Watch has been promoted heavily. That and the 360. That's the only two watches I've seen Android Wear really leading up to this week. Now Samsung's had their Galaxy Gear stuff, and I think there may be a confusion, or not confusion, but you represent, or I don't know, I could probably explain that better, but you think it's the old watch maybe, or a new version of the old watch, where this G Watch has been promoted as, ooh, it's the new hot thing, other than this round watch that's coming out. And I'm thinking our percentages are way down in Android Wear in general. Everybody's waiting for that 360, the Moto 360, the round watch to come out. So I think we've only got about 15% of Android Wear buyers even buying just now. And LG G Watch looks like the cool thing. Samsung's been out for a while. Of course, and then you've got some people like Tony and myself. We don't like Samsung for whatever reason.
Well, here's my idea. Here's my thought. I think that you're right about the LG, having been talked up a little bit more than Samsung. We didn't even know for sure that there was going to be a Samsung, Android Wear or what it would look like until I/O, and now we've got people, and I think this is something big because we have Android users have had a stigma for a while that they want to pay more for a phone because they want to compete with that iPhone mentality, like they have the highest end, the nicest, and we haven't had that before. If we haven't been iPhone users, we don't have that. People know what you're using just by the color of the earbuds that are in your ears. That thing back when iPods first got popular. But I think a lot of people are honestly, and this might be shallow, I don't know. I think a lot of people are honestly buying the G Watch because it's more expensive. For that simple reason, it's not that much. It's more expensive enough to say I got the more expensive one, but not expensive enough to break the bank. So really, it doesn't matter after tax. It's a tiny amount more. It's still like $20 more, and that's no big deal. But I think that's what people are doing because nobody can tell me the G Watch looks better than the Galaxy Live. You'd have to not have eyes, and literally, it's just an amorphous blob watch. Anyway. That aside, I think it's a lot to do with the price. I think people want to have the one that's more expensive, and I understand that. I'm kind of going the deep opposite way with my devices right now. I want to have all the cheapest devices, not because I'm not paying for them anyway, but because I want to prove to people that you don't have to have the $600 Galaxy S5. That was the way it was for a while. I wrote an article back in the day that said if you wanted a device that's going to be as functional as an iPhone, you need to pay as much as you would pay for an iPhone, and that was true at the time. It's getting to be the point where you can get cheaply made, like the Moto X. You can get a device that's made with low-end parts, and it'll work just as well as everything else, if not better. But I just want to show people, you can get the cheaper one, and I think that's what it is. I think people are buying that $229 instead of $199.
Interesting, and there may be some merit to that. What do you guys think?
I think that maybe it's possible. LG hasn't done anything in the watch game before. This is their first foray into this realm. This might be kind of the excitement of, okay, Samsung had their watches out last year. They came out with the updated versions earlier in the spring. Maybe it's time to try LG instead of seeing what Samsung can do, because it kind of does look like they put Android Wear on a Gear. That's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It might be something to do with that. Plus, Tony, you can never give Cliff props on having a Moto X because he's probably cheering, jumping up and down right now.
Hey, I don't care for Motorola in general. Even though I'm getting the Moto 360, that's the one I will be choosing. I don't care for Motorola's phones. I never have since I bricked a Razr, or actually I had a Razr that I was trying to fix, and it was just unsalvageable. I don't care for Motorola. They didn't pay attention to developers for a long time, and I don't even care if they're working with that now. But in general, I think that's true. I don't care for the Moto X, and I wouldn't espouse anyone buying one because it's last year's technology. But that is. But I understand what you're saying.
But at the same time, and it's a conversation that's been had millions of times, if not just by us.
Mm-hmm.
Motorola is using last year's technology, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
May not work for you. It may not work for me, but it works, and people are excited by it because of what you're talking about. And you are using last year's specs on this year's phone, and it's running smooth.
Yeah.
Last year's specs for Android. I always talk about people this when we talk about last year's specs. People do realize that the iPhone is a 1 gigahertz dual core with a gig of RAM, okay, which is by Android standards 3 years ago. So do you really need a quad core 2.5 gigahertz phone? No, you don't. That's my argument when anyone says, what's last year's specs? Well, how does it run? And I had a Moto X, and until I got the M8, the Moto X was my favorite phone. I would put it up against the S4 or any other flagship phone that there was, and it was amazing. And I probably may end up getting the Moto X Plus One or whatever it ends up being, regardless of the specs. Because for me, it's not about the specs; it's about how does it feel, how does it run, does it work like it's supposed to.
And this is one of the reasons that I'll look at the Moto 360 and will likely own a Moto 360, because I want that kind of ground up integration, or that kind of ground up, not integrations, that's not the word I'm looking for, optimization, software and hardware optimization on a watch, especially knowing that it can only have at max a 500 milliamp hour battery, and that's the big thing. I mean, you got to look at the big argument in my mind for the G Watch is, yeah, it's only 100 milliamp hours more than the battery, more than the Samsung, but that 100 milliamp hours is 1/4 of the battery. So yeah, that's a big amount of battery time you're losing if you go down. And I think, like you said, AMOLED display might help it out, and the fact that Samsung has a little bit of experience in the smartwatch game, that can help too. But I think Moto, that's the kind of integration I want if I'm trusting them to have such a small battery on my wristwatch. I think they'll do something good with that.
Good points. Good points. All right, another question over here from. This will be from Cliff as well. There's been very little talk about the Google Fit since it was mentioned yesterday, but what Apple's Fit stuff was hugely talked about. Why do you think the focus is more on Apple's Fit stuff than Google's Fit stuff? And I'm a big guy, so I don't keep up with Fit stuff in general. So somebody else tell me.
I mean, I'm going to say because there was so much else at the Google event, and if you look at the Apple, the Apple event where they announced a bunch of things, yeah, they announced iOS 8. They announced, which is really, it's a fairly big upgrade of iOS 7, but it's nothing to get super excited about. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything like, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before in my entire life, and the next version of OS 10, Yosemite, it's just a minor upgrade. So Fit was like the big, oh, we've never seen this from Apple before, oh, it's really, really cool. Whereas if you look at the Google I/O event, I mean, there was at least 3 or 4 wearables. I mean, everyone's super excited about wearables. Android in the car, okay? No one's seen that. Their reboot of Android, of Google TV. I mean, I think there was just so much at the event that overshadowed Fit that, it kind of became like a minor thing.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, really, I'm still trying to parse all that information. And Google Fit for me is just way down on there compared to wearables. I'm really excited about the new Android Google TV things and see where we go with that. Hopefully, it'll work a little better this time.
Yeah, and if you were at I/O yesterday, not only did you get a G Watch or a Samsung Watch, but you also got an Android TV.
That's pretty cool. That's the main reason I want to go to I/O, get free stuff.
Of course.
That's why most people go. That's why the tickets are $900 now.
Yeah.
Because people were taking home $1,300 Chromebook Pixels, which they could resell and make their airfare plus their ticket cost back.
Yeah, I think you should have to do a programming competition in order to get tickets to I/O.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because I mean, essentially, it's just open to the public, right? Public, if you can afford it, right?
Yeah, if you get lucky enough to get the tickets, you can buy them.
Yeah. All right, Fred. Let's get away from I/O. We've talked about that a bunch. Tell us a little bit about your adventure this week.
Okay. Well, yesterday I spent the day at CE Week, big consumer electronics event in New York City. It went on yesterday and today. I went to yesterday's event. There were some earlier things earlier in the week. Connected Car Conference, which I really wish I could have attended, and some other stuff. But I was at the main event yesterday. Generally speaking, I don't want to spend too much time on the presentations and conferences. There's a lot of coverage of that out there. What I'll say is that the main themes, if you will, big buzzwords, were wearables, of course, particularly with a focus on fitness, but not exclusively. Some fashion stuff as well, some clothing with programmable lighting and such things. A lot of newest and latest and greatest high-end audio, high-end video, 4K video, 4K displays is really the the theme this year, and what they call Ultra HD, which apparently is now a specification that's been released. So I did see some of the latest and greatest from LG in terms of smart TVs. They do have a smart TV that's running WebOS, and it is in fact the old Palm HP WebOS, which they've resurrected into a smart TV operating system. But more interesting for me was really kind of running around, seeing what all the vendors were, the manufacturers and other vendors were promoting there. And some of the most interesting stuff there, amidst the oceans of cell phone cases and covers and adapters and sleeves and so on, which are all variations on a theme. Some of the most interesting stuff were new technologies, products that are not quite ready to take to market. They did have a nice little alley in one of the showrooms there that they call the Innovation Zone, and these were kind of products in early stages of development. So let's see, among the more interesting things that I saw as a musician, and Tony, this will probably interest you too, interesting product there is something called Jamstick, produced by a company called Zivix, Zivix, and this is a MIDI controller, which is actually in the form of a guitar. It's a very small and short guitar. It's got 5 frets on it, and then octave adjustments and so forth to get past that. But what makes this one really interesting is that while it uses actual guitar strings, it's not at all working off of the vibrations of the strings. It's working off of infrared sensors, picking up the movement of your fingers, both in striking the strings and where you fret the strings. And it will interface. At the moment, they've only got it interfacing with iOS, but very cool technology, very small. I don't know if this is going to show here, but this is the device. They're primarily promoting it with their iPad app, and the reason for that is that Android has not quite caught up with iOS in terms of its ability to interface with MIDI, but very cool guitar technology, and that should be going into production and hitting the market in the next few weeks. So I'm hoping we're going to get a demo of that, or at least some more information, literature on it. Another real interesting product. Oh, I should mention, folks at Audio Technica were kind enough to give me a set of their Sonic Fuel headphones, which I am testing as we speak. So you guys could let me know how that sounds at the other end. One interesting technology was something called Window Liker, and I'm still trying to figure out what the significance of this name is.
Window Licker.
It's spelled Window Licker. The CEO, the creator there, is calling it Liker to avoid the connotations of the other pronunciation. But this is his words there. The point of this is a kind of new technology, new way to integrate advertising into video technology. It's really still kind of in a proof of concept stage. We were looking at a reasonably working demo, which is not available yet. Apparently there's going to be some sort of an interactive demo that we'll get to look at, but basically there is a way, they've devised a way to embed advertising or links to advertising in, essentially hidden in pixels in videos. So for example, their demo showed some kind of a 4-wheel drive vehicle rolling over some rough terrain, at which point certain objects on the screen, headlights on the vehicle, some other spots kind of illuminated, and those are links that you can then click on that would bring up links to other sources of information, essentially advertising links. So they're basically coming up with this as an alternative to landing on YouTube, having to sit through a 10-second or 20-second, 30-second video before you get to watch a commercial, rather, before you get to watch the video that you came there for. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes. They're putting the idea out there, and I guess trying to market it to a variety of outlets. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I just touched quickly on a couple of other things. I did get a quick look, not working, not operating, but an outfit there was called Elio Motors, E-L-I-O. They've got a two-seater gas-powered car. We talked about Tesla Motors last week, but this is a gas-powered car, but it's a two-seater front and back tandem car with a total body weight of about 1,200 pounds, and they claim that it gets 84 miles to the gallon average. So that's probably going into production next year at some time, and that'll be interesting to see how that actually takes off. There was an outfit there called First Sign, which is security wearable. They also did not have a working demo, but technology here is a smart headband, which you can wear when you're jogging, you can wear it when you're walking, but the key here is that it's not going to be triggered until you get a high impact, high velocity hit. So somebody comes along and knocks you over the head with a stick, that's going to set off an alarm, that's going to trigger something in an app somewhere. Similarly, if you fall and bang your head on the concrete, etc., that's going to trigger. So there's velocity and pressure sensitivity there. And again, early stages of development on this. Maybe the coolest, aside from the guitar thing that I saw there, amidst all the variations on a few themes, was a device called an Ozobot, which is a little tiny, and I think it's going to be relatively inexpensive, robotic sphere with a surface with wheels on the flat surface on the bottom with wheels on it, and this is something that can basically program to trace lines on a piece of paper. It can trace electronic lines, say on a tablet surface. Applications for this thing are still pretty much open-ended, but they are looking at it as a tool for interactive gaming. These are things that can perhaps crawl across board games, perhaps, I don't know, army games, war games. They can be used because the thing is programmable and you can put cues in the drawings. They're talking about using it as a device to teach kids how to program. In other words, you can set prompts with sort of an if-then statement. When you hit a color change, when you hit a particular marking on the paper, this robot is going to turn in a different direction and make another move. Again, I saw a working demo there, which was really pretty cool. Remains to be seen what they're going to do with this and what the applications will be. So a lot of groovy stuff. I did pick up some toys, which I'll be writing some reviews about, and I am expecting some more follow-ups from some of the vendors that were there as well. So I'll keep you guys posted as the follow-ups come in as well.
Well, a bunch of really neat stuff. I bet that was a blast to be at, though. Seeing all the up and coming, not quite ready for primetime stuff.
Well, there was a good buzz there. I was when I was within range and had a signal either on their Wi-Fi or on the air, I was getting emails and getting you guys messages about the bits that were coming in from I/O, which was it's kind of interesting that they would have scheduled this directly opposite Google I/O, but that's how it played out. So it was pretty cool, though. A lot of interesting stuff. Big players were there, a lot of small up-and-coming, and really essentially startups were there looking for publicity, looking for investments, and so on. So pretty much covered the gamut of everything that would fall under the consumer electronics world.
Hmm. Yeah, it is interesting that they would schedule that at the same time, but it is what it is. Glad you were there though to check all that stuff out though.
Well, I'm glad I was able to make it. Thanks.
All right, so I have a question for all of my. Let's get back on Android just for a second. This L thing, we've always been some type of sweet confection or candy bar tie-in. Why L instead of licorice or lollipop or something like that?
Because it's not released. They want to maintain a little bit of the mystery. They want us to talk about this tonight on this show. I
think they did it for us, actually.
Yeah.
My suggestion is they're looking for a sponsor. We were expecting key lime pie for months, and then at the last minute it was dropped on us that it was Kit Kat and a big advertising campaign. I think they haven't found the sponsor for this one yet.
I'm going Lego on it. Have you seen the Easter egg on it?
No, I have not seen it yet.
It's a set of blocks. It's got the traditional, kind of like how Kit Kat does. It's got 2 or 3 of them, but one of them is just 2 blocks together. Even the debugging little icon there in the notification kind of looks like a Lego to me. But it's not sweet. It's not candy.
You can't eat it, although I guess some kids do.
I remember playing with candy Legos, but I don't think they were Lego brand. There you go.
No, they're not specifically Lego brand, but there are the little candies that look like Legos. They're like little building blocks.
But yeah, just curious of what you guys thought. The why L instead of going with a name just yet?
Yeah, I think the same thing that Tony thought. I mean, it's not released yet, so I don't think it's got a name yet. They want to make sure that this is known as a developer release, so L versus whatever the final name is gives them a little bit of distinction.
They're running out of letters. They need to make a beeline in another direction. I mean, we've got what, maybe 5 years left, right, of different letters, we think? 5 years. How long's it been out? 4 years, and we're almost halfway through the alphabet. So we might have 5 years left of releases, and if they keep dragging their feet, but I mean, look at this. We had 4.3 and 4.4 updates, and then an announcement with a developer preview release of 5.0 all in the same month. So you never know.
Yeah. What do we go to? Double A's. We start doing battery.
Well, here's the thing: is probably in the next 5 releases of Android, there will be no more releases. Everything will just be a Play Services update. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else caught it or not, but the most recent Play Services update actually allows Google to put service pack type updates through their Play Services. So they're already starting to patch OS through Play Services without even having to worry about OS updates.
That's cool. Now here's something I wanted to touch on, is that look at the way that the Android material works, and look at the way how far the OS skins have come. Do you think, now I know we talked about this, not us, but I know the community talked about this with Google selling off Motorola and making the agreement with Samsung that Samsung would come more back into, tone back TouchWiz a little bit. Looking at Android material, I can't see how you're going to skin that. And, will companies bother trying to make it their own? Will Samsung continue with their TouchWiz interface and just do and pretty much overlay everything and it just runs Android because it needs to get apps? Or, how are we going to be seeing OEMs make Android their own now with this thing that's basically cosmetically a whole new animal from what we've seen before? Are we going to see them try to keep with it? I mean, Samsung's developed their little magazine thing instead of Google Now. I mean, are we just going to see them rely more heavily on their own stuff? I mean, what's going to happen with HTC, where they've been skimmed so lightly, and the only big thing they've done is what's that? Blink feed? Is that what it's called on HTC?
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? I mean, because Android material, it doesn't look too skinnable. Like, it's not like other versions of Android.
Here, I hope that the skins just become non-existent, and the manufacturers focus on services where they're built-in apps. One thing I will say as far as HTC goes, their skin is very light, but their email and calendar app is the best email and calendar app on Android with Exchange integration that exists. It is better than the iOS version, which was probably my favorite calendar and email system for Exchange. The one on HTC is way better.
What do you guys think? What do you think?
Here's what I'm thinking. That kind of stuff is the stuff that can. Because here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the unstoppable force that is Android. They've got 80% penetration and all this stuff right now, and that's exactly where iPhone was, IBM was, if you want to go a million years ago. So what's next? And that may be, Tony, what you're talking about. That's what's next. If you want to go Tizen or Tizen, however you say it, or something like that that comes in and then makes it more manufacturer friendly, so they can skin back on top of it. And that's what hurts Android. Who knows? Right now, Android's everywhere, and there'll eventually be something that we go, hey, you guys remember when Google was it? Either that or they become our eventual overlords, and we're not allowed to say that kind of thing. But, you know, that could be the thing that hurts them. They're so integrated in themselves that there's no way to monetize, because that's what helps all the phones sell. The Moto looks different than the HTC. The HTC looks different than the Samsung because they're able to put stuff on top of it. And if they're not allowed, or not allowed, but if it's harder to do that, that may be what gets them away from it.
But I have to go back to, I mean, look at this. Look at anyone who has a YouTube account. What happened? What do they have now with their YouTube account? If you want a YouTube account, what other account do you have to have?
G+.
What exactly? A Google Plus account. So look at what Google just did in their not so sneaky, completely overt way at Google I/O. They said, "Hey, guess what's going to be in every car and every HD TV that's manufactured after 2015 or 2015 and after? Us. We're going to be in there." So you know, if you have an iPhone, awesome. But what should you get next? Android. You should probably get Android because it's going to connect with everything. It's going to connect with your watch. It's going to connect with your thermostat. It's going to connect with your car. It's going to connect with your TV, and it's all going to be perfect. Now they always do. They maintain the high road by saying, "Oh yeah, you can control Android. You can cast to your Chromecast. You can cast to your Android TV using your iPhone too." But really, why would you want to break the system? I mean, just use what's in the system. Use what works. So it's
the system that actually wrote the iOS system of that, in terms of that, does not. It actually works. Surprisingly, in terms of the Chromecast with iOS, it works on my iPad. It works on my iPhone. You know, everything works. And they're coming out with more apps, not as quickly as Android, but they're coming out with more apps that work with Chromecast.
Well, and I get that, but I mean, if you have. I mean, I don't know if they'll work with the Android car. I'm sure it'll have some features, but it won't. It's not going to work the way that Android works. You know, Android Wear Watch. It's just, if you want that's and everything with the Android Wear, with the Android in your car. I'm sure we're not going to be seeing cars manufacturers skinning their Android in their car, and we're not going to be seeing too many things with the Android Wear name heavily skinned and working differently. At least I don't think so. I could be totally wrong about that, but. If they all work similarly, I would say, I want that same experience. I want that same experience on my phone, on my watch, on my tablet, on my car, everything. And I think that they've kind of done something brilliant here with that. They're locking you into the Google system, and they're just doing it the opposite way that iPhone did. Apple started out saying, you need to have all of our stuff and only our stuff. And Google's just saying, okay, well, now that we've got you interested, it's better if you have all of our stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, Apple's doing the same kind of thing. I mean, obviously it hasn't all come out yet, but Apple's doing the same kind of thing in terms of their home automation stuff that they're doing. A lot of stuff's baked into iOS 8 for home automation.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of rumors happening right now about not as much as like the iWatch and the iPhone 6, but there's still rumors coming out that an Apple TV, not a set-top box, or not a TV itself, but like the Apple TV device, a new one's going to come out that's going to integrate better. And your phone will be your hub for everything.
Well, it's the same is true for the new Google TV and Android L. I mean, look at all the integration they have there.
No, that's true. I'm sorry. I get a little defensive sometimes. I apologize.
Oh, and I'm not saying they're any better than Apple in any way about that. I'm just saying they went about it the reverse. Instead of where Apple kind of started out saying it's better if you have all of our stuff, Android's all started from the beginning saying, yeah, this will connect to pretty much everything. But now we're seeing that, yeah, we're going to be now they're just starting to try to monopolize all these areas. Because I mean, really, Apple's not going to start working with manufacturers at all. I mean, other than car manufacturers, that's it. But Apple's not going to be working with TV manufacturers to put Apple's TV operating system into a LG TV. That's not going to happen. Apple doesn't work that way. So we're going to see that all LG TVs, all Samsung TVs, all those smart TVs in the future aren't just going to be smart TVs. They're going to be Android TVs. And that, to me, that's the huge push to Android. I think Android may not even end up being a phone operating system forever. Maybe Android will just be like, okay, now Android just operates everything else. You know, and you can use whatever phone you want to connect to it, whatever the next future of smartphones is. Maybe they're just making their push to get Android onto toasters.
Well, I mean, even outside the mobile space, Google gives you more of a reason to use their stuff. So, I mean, Apple, if you look at it, Apple's big reason to use their stuff is an iPad, is an iPhone. But I mean, as far as web goes, well, okay, they're laptops too. But as far as web goes, I mean, who uses Safari, honestly? No one. What's everyone use? Chrome.
Mm-hmm.
So you're using Chrome. So what's the search engine you're going to use? Google. Okay, so now Google's got all your information. Oh, well, now it's better to use Gmail because I can do X, Y, and Z. Oh, well, let me use Google Now. Well, Google Now works better on an Android phone. So I think that overall, even outside the mobile space, Google gives you more of a reason to use their products.
Yeah.
Well, without a doubt, I mean, Google and Android have it down. I mean, there's been a lot of wisdom in what they've acquired and how they're integrating it. But still back to what's next. And I don't think iPhone will come back in that same way. They'll still be around. It'll be the next thing. And I don't know how they'll do it. Of course, that's future and all that kind of stuff. But there will be something, and we'll think back to this conversation. We go, man, remember when we thought Android would be around forever? And it's just historically, there's always been something that's huge that can't be stopped, that's so big, and then something else comes around and eventually just either dominates it or makes it go away. Blockbuster is one of those things. Sega, if you want to go video game, all these things were big and huge and couldn't be stopped, and here we are. Who goes to a Blockbuster because they're all closed? Who uses Sega systems? You don't play games. Eventually, something will beat Google, and that'll be really interesting to see. Either that, or again, Google will own all of our souls, and we'll just have to bow down and worship it.
Well,
as long as it's not Windows Phone 8, I don't care.
That'll be something new. I really don't think Microsoft will come back. I don't think iPhone could overtake Android. It'll be something else. And it may be nothing for years, and it may be nothing that's even out now. But we're talking about how do we get stuff to us, and that's what Google's doing really good right now. They've got phones and cars and TVs and all this kind of stuff, but they're all separate. 20 years from now, we won't have separate entities. It'll all just be life, and just the way things work. And then what's integrated, and it could still be Google, but who knows? Fun, interesting thing to think about.
Well, it could go anywhere, especially since you're starting off with an open source operating system under the hood on all of this. But as far as Apple, they may have reached the limits, the limitation for the moment at least, of their long-standing marketing plan, which is that you've got to use their software on their operating system on their hardware. And as they begin to venture into these other areas like television, like home automation and so on, there are big players out there who simply have no way to get into the game with Apple at the moment, at least even if they want to, because Apple is not an open system. As you said, LG, the other big boys are not going to and have no opportunity to integrate Mac OS or iOS into their products, whereas Google is putting out an alternative that everybody can interface with. Similar to the way perhaps that Microsoft took off by licensing their operating system and basically opening up the whole PC industry.
There's always somebody that have some neat little niche idea. I mean, if somebody came out, the next IO or the next C, like the thing you went to, Fred, and they have a never chargeable battery and forever lasting display, so wherever you're looking, it just happens, and it's all integrated into the normal current AC/DC thing. Everybody's going to jump on it, and then everybody say Google was stupid and old and gross. So let's just do that. People are hipstery too. I hear that Google has 80%. Well, I don't want to be on Google's Android stuff because that's too mainstream now.
I have things that I want to say that are not PG. They're not appropriate for this conversation.
Well, we're over the hour mark, so viewer discretion is advised. Go ahead. Close us out, Andrew. Tell us everything you've got.
Tell you everything I got about what?
Whatever, your non-PG version. Go for it.
My non-PG version? My non-PG version is the fact that doesn't matter where you go, doesn't matter what you do, you will still see iPhones everywhere. It doesn't matter.
Grandma and Grandpa need a phone they can use.
That's cute. Oh, that is gorgeous. That's gorgeous. Your sister Sally needs one too, right?
My sister's using a little HTC phone that big.
No, go ahead, Andrew. You said you had some things you wanted to share. Go ahead, bud.
You don't need all the pieces to the puzzle to make it all fit. Okay, I don't need to be sitting here with a MacBook Pro or an iPad and an iPhone to make everything work across the board. Does it make it easier? Absolutely, can't argue with you. I can't. It's all expensive. It's all overpriced. My Nexus 7 I paid less than $200 for. If I want to go buy an iPad Mini Retina, just for that extra that high resolution display, I got to go spend $400. I'm not an anti-Android guy anymore. I got over that kick. Am I in my iPhone fix right now? I'm a little bit. Android L is kind of bringing me back from that, I'm not going to lie. Android L is really making me excited about it, and then the fact that I have an M8, and HTC announced today, either today or yesterday, that via their HTC Advantage program, 90 days from the release, M7 and M8s will have L. And that's exciting for me too, but at the same time, it's like I don't do the bashing thing. I'm not saying anybody is bashing, and I feel like I'm just going on a rant right now. But yeah. Feel free to come back with something, guys. It's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm not going to curse you out in the chat later on. Don't worry. Except for maybe Chuck. Just Chuck.
Hey, well, you know what? I'm not loyal to any brand because I'm sitting here talking to you on a MacBook Pro, which I wouldn't trade for anything else in the world. I absolutely love Apple laptops. I actually don't think they're overpriced. I know a lot of people do. I don't think they are because they will last you 4 years. Easily. I've got an original MacBook Air, which is now, 3.5 years old?
That's pushing 4 years old, yeah.
Okay, pushing 4 years old, and I still use it on a daily basis without a hitch.
The MacBook Pro that I'm on right now is from 2010. I threw 8 gigs of RAM in it because that's the maximum we can support, and I'm running everything. I'm running Yosemite perfectly fine.
And I've said many times before, I actually have an iPad. I use that as my tablet because for media consumption, I think the apps on iOS are better. And I would use an iPhone, except for it's too damn small. It's too small for me. I can't. I've used iPhones. I've used every version. I was one of the first people. Not one of the, obviously not one, but I stood in line to get the original iPhone. So I've had pretty much every iPhone that exists. I still just prefer Android. I think from a phone perspective, for me, the rich notifications, those kind of things, it just works better for me.
I told Cliff like 2 nights ago. I said my favorite my favorite design phone probably ever is the Nexus 5. For me personally, if you put iOS with a little bit better camera, because the 5 megapixel isn't that great. If you give me a better camera, but you put iOS on a form factor of like the Nexus 5, I'm done. I'm out.
If you put iOS 8, then I might
Thank
agree
you.
with you.
Yes, not iOS, not anything below iOS 8. I will agree with you on that.
Okay. Yep. iOS 8, I might, and a bigger iPhone, I might try it. But we'll see.
Tony, you look angry over there. Say something.
Oh, I'm not angry at all. No, I'm sorry. I was putting my new tablet over there. Anyway, no, I was gonna say. I will say I'm not 100% against anything Apple does at all. I am 100% against using Microsoft products. Like I will research, and it's nothing against Microsoft. I love Bill Gates. I think he's awesome. I think the things he does are awesome. You know, like the things he chooses to do. But we've got a whole generation of people that still think, and I've touched on this in several of my articles, that still think that you have to have Windows. Like, people walk into a Best Buy and they immediately cripple the salesman from being able to sell them anything by saying, does it run Microsoft Word? Because now they have two choices. Pay $1,300 for the baseline Mac, or pay, four to as high as you want to pay for any of the Windows computers. They're taking away their option to buy a Chromebook, to buy a tablet of some sort, because they said Microsoft Word. Does it run Microsoft Word?
Unless you get a Surface.
Well, that's true, but
or
a Surface
you get an iPad
Windows.
and you have Office 360.
But a Surface, that's true. But these people have this idea that they need Microsoft Word because every day they need clip art apparently, and and that's the thing. My thing is first of all, you buy the device that you can afford, that's gonna work for you, and you make it do what you need it to do. Like that's a very techie mentality. But it's also a mentality. I've never had a virus on one of my personal devices because I know how to. Exactly. But people do get viruses, and I would have thought by now we would have a generation of kids and people our age, kids and up, who know how to avoid getting viruses, how to avoid their computer slowing down, just general care and upkeep for a computer. But we don't. Nobody knows anything more about computers than they did, except how to get on Facebook on whatever device they're on. That's the only thing people know. That's the only thing they can be trusted for. So if they just need to get on Facebook, they need a Chromebook or a tablet. That's the two things, depending on what form factor they want.
You really need a Facebook phone.
Yeah, or that. But this is where I am. People buy these Windows computers. So for me, I would totally tell someone to get a Mac. I've told people to go to the used computer store and get a used Mac before buying anything that with Microsoft on it, because I can't trust you. I'm not going to suggest that you get something that's not going to work for you because you don't know how to upkeep it and you don't care to learn how to make sure it works. And that's where I am with it.
So I work in sales for one of the big companies, the cell phone carriers, and I've a lot of the things nowadays, it's like everybody's going to come in to upgrade their phones or buy new phones. Like, everybody knows that. But the big push right now is tablets and portable hotspots are our big push right now. And I've converted a lot of people in my year and a half of being there from just by showing them Drive one time. I showed them Drive. I showed them the fact that it works on my iPhone, the fact that I can open something up on my Android tablet, look at it from my computer, edit everything simultaneously, and not even talk about the fact that the five of us could be in a document right now editing it, and it wouldn't skip a beat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't touch Word. What's that?
I said in most shows we do all have the document open in Drive. Sorry.
Yeah. While we're talking Microsoft Word, one thing I was super excited about: native Word, Excel editing in Google Docs. Thank you.
Was that yesterday?
Yes. Native editing of Word and Excel documents in Google Docs. There is no more like translation or imports. It is native editing right there. Thank you, Google.
Trying to import something into Pages on my Mac is a pain.
I honestly, I have zero reason anymore to buy Microsoft Office, because now that it can natively do it, I can send out any clients I need in Word, but I don't need Word.
Right.
Yeah, that's killer. And really, a lot of that stuff just comes back to education. And kudos to Microsoft and all the antivirus companies that make people think you have to have their stuff. I mean, that's the point. Here, you need this, buy this. Good for them. But
Scroogle,
do what?
the Scroogle campaign when they bashed Chromebooks
Hmm.
with the guys from Pawn Stars.
Yeah. I mean, that's their job. That's what they should do, and they've done that very, very well. Even some of the carriers, not to mention any of them because it may offend some people, but some of the cell phone carriers have done a very, very good job of making you think that certain ones are far, far superior to others until you do your own research. So I mean, good for them. I mean, that's what they should be doing.
Oh, I'm in sales. I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, I don't. I'm not going to give you. I'm not going to give Tony a Windows phone if he's had nothing but Android phones his entire life. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen.
Hmm.
You know, it doesn't matter whether it's going to make me money, make the company money. Tony's going to come back in a week and tell me he hates his phone with a passion and do something different. So like, for me personally, I don't do anything like that, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, and not to cut our conversation short, we got some good stuff going on, but we are well over our hour mark. So, not to bore anybody further than we already have, let's go ahead and wrap this stuff up. Huge thanks to you, Andrew. I appreciate you coming on here tonight and sharing your thoughts on iOS and other various things. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. It's exciting to be here for the first time.
Yeah, hopefully you make it to a few more.
I'm going to try to.
Excellent. Excellent. And good to see you again, Chuck. I missed you last week, so I like your background. It looks very fun over there.
Well, sadly, you'll be missing me next week. I'll actually be on a plane during our regular time, so I won't be here next week. But I'll be back the week after.
All right. Well, yeah, be careful, and we'll miss you, and hope everything goes well out there. But it was good to see you again, bud.
Yep.
Fred, good to see you, too. Hope that you had a happy birthday.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, good to see you as well. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on your adventure week over at CE.
Well, good to see you back, Alvy, and looking forward to next week as well.
Awesome, awesome. And my co-host, Mr. Tony McAfee. Thanks for driving the boat last week. I appreciate it, and thanks for handling everything this week.
Definitely. Always a pleasure to be on, guys.
Excellent. And me, I'm your host, Alvy, for BOATT. I'm the driver this week, and hopefully I'll see you guys all next week. Any other questions or comments, just leave them down below. But those are our thoughts, and we'd love to hear yours. Be sure to click subscribe. We'll see you guys next week. But for now, this boat has set sail.